Hello, my name is Dr. Fonda Goldman. I'm a licensed naturopathic physician with a private practice in Stratford, Connecticut. And today I wanted to talk to you about Marma Therapy, or Ayurvedic energy points, and specifically the Marma points on the hand. Before we get too deep into this, a note of caution. Please know that the information presented here is for educational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. For any symptoms that are severe or worsening, please contact a qualified healthcare professional. And it's always important to remember that the best way to treat disease is to determine the root cause, and it's best to develop a comprehensive treatment plan, of which Marma can be a part. So what is Marma Therapy? Well, it's considered an energy medicine therapy, and some people, I like to kind of use the words Ayurvedic acupressure, because some people might have some understanding of what acupressure is. Acupressure is derived or similar to acupuncture, which derives from traditional Chinese medicine. But it doesn't use needles. And Marma therapy actually comes from Ayurveda, or traditional Indian medicine. However, Marma therapy does not use needles. So that's why I usually liken it to acupressure. So Marma therapy is actually really quite old. The first origins of it are actually related back to Vedic Indian times. And actually related to sports. So through different sports like archery and wrestling and boxing, sportsmen started to discover or understand the power of these points for both injuring their opponents as well as recovering themselves from injuries. And then Sushruta came along in the 6th century BCE. He's an Ayurvedic surgeon and is really foundational. His work is foundational in Ayurveda. He's considered the father of surgery. He's considered the father of plastic surgery specifically because he recorded in his book the first rhinoplasty, or nose reconstruction. He's also considered the father of brain surgery, so that's pretty amazing considering this is again the 6th century BCE. He wrote a seminal work on Ayurveda called the Sushruta Samhita, and these points that were initially sort of understood through Vedic sports, he developed further and sort of really systematized. And so there are 107 of these points throughout the body, and today we'll be talking about 9 on the hand and the wrist. So the first point, it's called Manibandha, and that's translated from the Sanskrit, which basically means jewel lock, or kind of where your bracelet would fall if you wore a bracelet. The location of it is the midpoint of the wrist crease. You can see in the picture here. So in the supine position, if you follow these sort of tendons that run up the lower arm towards the wrist crease, and then you'll come up against, in the corner here, this prominence. And so right where my thumb is in this picture is this point. It's between the tendons, the palmaris longus and the flexor carpi radialis, if you're into that much anatomy. And the energies that it invokes, so these perhaps only deep students of Ayurveda may know or understand. And that's okay. You can still get a feel for what these points are important for without understanding the information, the energy section. But this particular point stimulates and balances the Apana Vayu, the Vyana Vayu, and the Shleshika Kapha. And so indications for this point, or why you might use this point. So anything sort of local to the area, like pain, swelling, arthritis, range of motion in the wrist, and carpal tunnel, because the medial nerve runs right kind of close to there. And perhaps surprisingly, there's actually a relationship with the reproductive system. So if somebody has low libido, premature ejaculation, or problems with the prostate or cervix, this point can be helpful. It's also related to the lower GI, so specifically the rectum, and it can help with hemorrhoids. And in addition to these things, it can help to balance the mind and emotions. So quite a range of indications for this point. So the second point is called Korcha Shira, which translates to head of the ligament. And the location of this one is, it's on the opposite side, so the palm is facing up. It's on the opposite side of the thumb near the ulnar bone. And it's in a depression right below that corner, bottom corner of the palm of the hand. It's in a depression between the styloid process and the tricletal bone. The energies that this point balances and helps with are the pranavayu, the apanavayu, the vyanavayu, the sadaka pitta, and the shleshika kapha. Again, if these words don't mean anything to you, you can still get a sense of what these points are for, so no problem. But the indications for this point are, again, local effects, so pain, swelling, arthritis near this area, and ulnar neuropathy, because the ulnar nerve runs right along there. And perhaps surprisingly, the reproductive system. So pain during ovulation, ovaries in general, and the spermatic cord can be helped with this point. The lower GI, specifically the rectum and hemorrhoids, can be helped by this point. And this is also a point that can help to balance mind and emotions, so quite a range here. The third wrist point, there are 3 wrist points. The third wrist point is the Baya Manibandha. So Manibandha was the first point we talked about, the jewel lock, and Baya before Manibandha means external jewel lock. So if you turn your wrist, so you're at the bottom of the thumb there, there's what's called you're on the radial side of the wrist, or the thumb side of the wrist. There's a depression between the extensor pollicis longus and brevis. I know a lot of long words here. But this is also called the anatomical snuff box. So if you kind of lift your thumb a little bit and kind of push underneath, there's like this little divot right underneath the thumb there. That's what you're looking for. The energies invoked by this point are the pranavayu, the vyanavayu, and the ranjaka pitta, as well as the shleshika kapha. So indications for this particular point would be, again, local effects, pain, swelling, arthritis, like in the wrist or the thumb, for example. This one on the right side, this point on the right side actually helps to detoxify the liver. And this point on the left side helps to balance and stimulate the spleen, which is important for immunity. So this point is quite a bit different from the first 2 points we talked about. So again, 3 points for the wrist. Let's cover that briefly to summarize. Again, we have 3 points for the wrist. We have Manibandha, point number 1, Korcha Shira, or point number 2, and then we have Vaya Manibandha, or point number 3. So what's common and different about these 3 points? All 3 points are good for local pain, swelling, inflammation, and arthritis, right? Probably noticed that. Point number 1 and 2 are helpful for the reproductive system. Point number 1 and 2 are helpful for the lower GI. Remember, we talked about the rectum and the hemorrhoids. Point number 1 and 2 are good for balancing mind and emotions. Number 1 is unique in that it's the most helpful for carpal tunnel because the median nerves runs close to there. Number 2 is best for ulnar neuropathy. Number 3 is helpful for balancing the liver and the spleen. So there you go, 3 points on the wrist. So the next 3 points are going to be close to, or be related to the thumb and the palm of the hand. So the first point is called Angushta Mula, or the root of the thumb. And it's located on the back of the hand, the dorsum of the hand, and it's in this depression or the web between the first and second metacarpals, or first and second fingers here. And it's the belly of the first dorsal interosseous muscle, if you know what that is. But basically, it's sort of at the base, like when you turn your hand over, there's a web there, and if you kind of slide towards the back of the web, that's where you want to aim. The energies here that are affected, pranavayu, apanavayu, vyanavayu, uddanavayu, ranjaka pitta, and tarpika kapha. And again, you don't need to know these necessarily, but if you're deeper into Ayurveda, you probably will know them. Just as one example, Ranjaka Pitta, that's a type of sort of fiery energy, and it's specifically related to the way that like the stomach and upper GI help to digest food. So just as one example, not to get too deep into that, but so please note though, this point is contraindicated in pregnancy. So if you're thinking about getting pregnant or pregnant, don't work with this point at all. But otherwise, indications for this point are, again, local problems, pain, arthritis, neuropathy in this local area of the hand, possibly wrist. This is also related to the head. So if you have sinus headaches or migraines or vertigo, this can be a helpful point. It can also help the respiratory system, such as sinus congestion. It also helps the cardiovascular system. It can increase circulation. And it's helpful for the GI. On the right hand, it's related to the liver, and on the left hand, it's related to the spleen. And this is also a good point for balancing the mind and emotions. Point number 5, so if you turn your hand over with the palm facing up, the big mound at the bottom of your thumb, that's called the thenar eminence. And right in the middle there's a midpoint right in there where this point is. And this point is called kurcha, or ligament fascia. That's what that means. And the energies that are evoked by this point are Apanavayu, Pranavayu, Sadaka Pitta, and Avalambaka Kapha, excuse me. So again, just a couple of examples, not to get too deep into it because that's a whole different talk, but Sadaka Pitta is another type of fiery energy, and that's related to how the mind interacts and translates and processes sensory input in the world. So it's really how the body, the mind, the being processes and digests experiences. Avalambaka Kapha, for example, that's more of an earthy energy, and that's related mostly to the lungs, making sure that it's moist, so the air transfer and the oxygen transfer happens well. So again, just a couple of examples. But knowing that, so Sadaka Pitta, because it helps us understand and digest experiences, it is going to help balance mind and emotions. And Avalambaka Kapha, because it's related to the lungs, we're going to see some improvement with respiratory function with this point. So let's go through the full list of indications here. So again, local effects. So if there's pain, swelling, arthritis, carpal tunnel, this would be a helpful point. If there are respiratory issues such as difficulty breathing or congestion, this can be helpful. This can also stimulate or increase immunity. It's also helpful in the reproductive system, specifically testicular pain or pain during ovulation. And as I mentioned, it's helpful for balancing mind and emotions. So point number 6, or Talahridra, or what that translates to is heart of the palm, location of it. So there's a depression between the second and third metacarpals, and it's where, if you make a fist, where your middle finger lands, that's this point. So, and the energies that it invokes, Pranavayu, Vyanavayu, Udana-vayu, Sadaka Pitta. So we just talked about that. Sadaka Pitta is related to the fire, internal fire that helps us digest and process experiences. So you can imagine, as you see in the indications list, balances mind and emotions. And Avalambaka Kapha, which I just briefly mentioned in previous slides, related to kind of earthy, long energy. This is also helpful for the respiratory system. So again, if you're a student or interested in deeper levels of Ayurveda, who knows, maybe I'll come up with another talk or another video, but that's basically what those energies refer to. So the full list of indications for this point, again, local effects, pain, swelling, arthritis, carpal tunnel, sweating of the palm. That can be helpful here. This is also related to the head. So for somebody who's experiencing racing thoughts, ADHD, or having problems concentrating, this can be helpful. That's helpful for the respiratory system, the lungs and the diaphragm, and making sure that those are coordinating. It's also helpful for the cardiovascular system, so things like chest pain and arrhythmias. And then, as I mentioned, it helps to balance mind and emotions. So that is Talahudra, or heart of the palm. So let's just review these last 3 points. So again, these are the thumb and palm points. Number 4, so this is in the web. So if you look at the picture, and the arrow is pointing actually to behind the back side of the hand. So in the web there, the thumb, between the thumb and the index finger, that's called Angushta Mula, or root of the thumb. Number 5, which is ligament, translated as ligament or fascia, is Kircha. And number 6, which is where the middle finger lands when you make a fist, is Talafridra, or the heart of the palm. So if we look at the similarities and differences, all 3 points are good for local effects like pain, swelling, arthritis. All 3 points are good for balancing mind and emotions. All 3 points are good for the respiratory system. Points 4 and 6, what they have in common is they're both good for the head. Point number 4 is good for sinus headaches, migraines, vertigo. Point number 6 is good for things like ADHD and concentration. So slightly different, issues going on with the head. Points 4 and 6 also have cardiovascular functions in common. So point number 4 increases circulation, and point 6 is related to, or can be helpful with, arrhythmias and chest pain. Okay, point 4 on its own, that's the only one of these 3 that really has a GI-related function. It's helpful with balancing the liver and the spleen. Point number 5 is unique in these 3 in terms of its being able to increase immunity and also being able to balance the reproductive system. So there you go, 3 points for the thumb and the palm. So the last 3 points are going to be on the fingers. Okay, so the first point on the finger is called Hasta Kshipra, or fast-acting point on the hand. And this is at the midpoint of the base of the thumbnail. Okay, so the base of the thumbnail right in the midpoint there. And the energies that this point invokes or balances is Pranavayu, Vyanavayu, Tarpika Kapha. And indications for this point, again, local pain, swelling, arthritis of the thumb. And it helps with the head, so headaches, really of any position or location on the head, migraines, vertigo, and seizures. And it's also helpful for excessive heat in the body. Okay, so it has unique functions there. The next finger point is going to be on the index finger or pointing finger, and the name of it is Tarjani, and that's what it means, is pointer and index finger. The location of it is the midpoint of the base of the index finger nail. So again, you're going to the base of the nail, right in the middle there, that's your point. The energies invoked by this point are the Pranavayu, the Udanavayu, the Appanavayu, and the Avalambaka Kapha. Indications for this point, again, local pain, swelling, arthritis of the index finger. It's also helpful for the respiratory system. It can help with things like chronic cough, shortness of breath, and asthma, so COPD type stuff. It's also helpful for the lower GI, specifically the colon. Yeah, so if you're having issues with constipation and or diarrhea, this can be helpful at this point. And the last point here is on the index, or excuse me, the little baby pinky finger here. So again, we're going to the midpoint of the base of the nail on the little finger. For this point, it's called Kanishtika, which means, translates as little finger. And the energies invoked or balanced by this point are the Pranavayu, the Vyanavayu, the Sadhakapitta, and the Avalambaka Kapha. So indications, again, local effects, pain, swelling, arthritis of the little finger. Cardiovascular, so it helps to regulate heart function and circulation, and it helps to balance emotion. So especially when there's like anxiety or palpitations involved, this can be a helpful point. So let's just summarize these last points on the fingers here. So we have point number 7 on the midpoint base of the nail of the thumb. So this is Hasta Kshipra. We have point number 8, or Tarjani. This is the midpoint of the base of the index finger nail. And we have point number 9, or Kanishtika, which is the midpoint of the base of the little fingernail. So all 3 of these, again, have local effects, pain, swelling, arthritis. But they're individual in that Point number 7 is good for issues related to the head, like headaches and vertigo, and also excessive heat. Point number 8 is important for respiratory function and also colon function. And point number 9 is important or helpful with cardiac function as well as balancing emotions. So there you go. 9 points, Marma points for the hand and wrist. And so my thought of providing this video was that this is going to be the first video of 2. So this video is more the sort of background and theoretical information about these points so that they're understood pretty well. And then the next video, hopefully I can get it together soon, is actually going to be a flow of how do you actually work with these points. So it's going to be more clinically oriented, and hopefully it's going to be, if I can get it together right the way I have it in my head, it'll be a follow along type thing. Because what I tend to do in my office is I teach people how to do kind of a sequence flow so that they can do it at home and help themselves. And lately, with all the stresses of the world, I've been teaching people this flow to help them with especially stress, anxiety, and insomnia. So it's a very helpful thing. But again, I felt like I needed to put out just background out there first, and then we'll get to the more practical clinical stuff next time, hopefully. All right, so thank you for your time, and until the next one, take care.